Hello, hello, hello. Merry holidays and a happy new year. Trading and investing of any kind carries risk. Everything discussed here is for entertainment purposes only and not to be taken as financial advice because I don't give advice. Don't forget to like and subscribe and notification bell if you want to be notified of all the beautiful things that come out of my voice and face. And then tell people and share and things like that and, that good stuff. So let's talk about the market. And I don't mean like the market is so stupid. What do we have today? We had the FOMC. We didn't really get a lot out of it. And I think that has a lot to do with the zero data expirations. I think those, a lot of these moves are delayed. And I think it has a lot to do with just destroying those 0-day expirations, right? Because they expire today, right? So the time delay is going to kill you. So I don't do a ton of options. So that's just my thesis. Now, what do I want to see happen in the market? Well, what I would like to see in the market is a push. Why is that? Well, several reasons. The first reason I would like to see a push is because we're looking at this broadening pattern here, right? So here we are with this broadening pattern. And we've just been riding the lower trend of this broadening pattern, creating what looks to be a curl. Okay, so it looks like we're curling off of this area down here. Now, does that mean we're going to rip roar? It doesn't mean that. No, absolutely not. But there are a few things that kind of speak to me here. Now, this chart is just full of garbage and you're just going to have to deal with it because I do a lot of research on this chart. So here we have a shark pattern, right? So this shark pattern can complete. Technically, it's already completed. Now, because a shark pattern can complete at an 88.6 retrace. So if we were to do this and we were to draw this out, we pull down, get this 88.6, like we're already entering the space that says this is complete, right? We've got these tests, we got this terminal bar, and we got this turnaround. So now we've come back down and we've retested again and we've come a bit lower, right? But we're still in the range of completion and reversal. We're not necessarily in the range of any kind of crazy continuation. It looks like we've got this curl going on as well. So where we're struggling is we're struggling to push up here. Now, the reason I would like to see a push, now to be completely honest and fair and all of those things, if I see that this is going to change, I'm going to flip my bias and I'm going to trade it the other direction because nobody knows which way the market's going, right? It's not when people make calls, a lot of times they make calls because of a technical thing, and I can make a call and tell you that I think the market's going to turn around and it's going to push to 395. Does that mean that's going to happen? No, it's just what I want to happen. And I want it to happen because there's a handful of things that tell me that that's very possible. And so anybody that tells you they know where the market's going is completely full of garbage. They don't know where the market's going. If they've got the sports almanac from Back to the Future, then you should probably take it from them and figure out how you can use that for your own gain. Anyway, so when a shark pattern completes, we are going to get, upon completion, a 50% retrace roughly, right? And it's not guaranteed, but it's something that, if we're playing the odds, we're going to get a 50% retrace. Let's look at where that puts us. Well, that puts us at 394.52. And it's in this range where a lot of stuff has come in to say it's very possible we're going to go back there. Again, it doesn't mean we're going to because there's a lot of them down here. There's some down here where this pattern could legitimately complete at a 113. There's others on the way down, right? So we don't know for sure. So, this is why I want to see us push back to this area. Now, if we get a 50% retrace, we'll probably get a wick up here, to like the 398 area. It's very possible. But if we hit that 50% area, there's a chance we're going to slow down. We're especially going to slow down at this 61.8, right? Because that's just what happens. So what I want to see there is continuation. I don't want to see a 5-0 pattern set up. I want to see more of a fake bull market. If there is such a thing as a fake bull market. But if we push into that area, that 394 area, that's going to put us in here, right? We have a lot of resistance in here, which we got to plow through that resistance, right? We got to get through that resistance, and we need energy to do that. Just as we've struggled in the past, and I mentioned, like, where do we find buyers? We got to go down. You got to find buyers below. It's hard to find them up here unless you get a bit of a rip, right? You get a bit of a rip, and then you get all these people chasing it, and that's how you get short squeezes. And there's a lot of people that want the market to go down. Now, I'm not saying the market, the SPY and futures is going to squeeze necessarily, but what I would like to see is us to get in here, sit in here, get some momentum, and then give this trend line a test. And as we give this trend line a test, that's what will determine what we do next. So what happens if we hit this trend line and turn around? Well, then we just plummet back down to earth, right? That's just kind of what's going to happen. What do I think will happen? I personally think, oh man, when I say that, it reminds me of that Miss America pageant. Personally, I think that we're going to totally pop into that area, and we're possibly going to push through it, and we're going to attempt to nail this pattern. Now, how we're going to nail that pattern is we have this broadening pattern setting up. And I don't think we're going to push through that broadening pattern. I think we'll hit that broadening pattern, and I would like to think we're going to turn around. If we can get up here. Now, I want to be very clear. Anything through this trend line for me, and when I say trend line, I mean this massive trend line that keeps us in this bear market. I don't think it's going to be a struggle for us to go for that and try to test it again. I could be wrong. And again, if it turns around and goes the other way, I'm going to trade it the other way. But anything above that, where we stay above that, I think is a pie in the sky idea. I'm not 100% convinced it's going to happen. I am hoping, right? And we all know what hope gets us if we follow our hopes when it comes to trading on the stock market, right? It gets you slaughtered. And so I want to make that very clear that anything above this trend line, if it gets up there, it's this weird idea I've got in my head that for some reason we're going to get up here and we're going to retest this upper area of this broadening pattern. Now, as far as broadening patterns go, we have really hit our limit of, testing these areas. So the next time, which is the weird part, that we test, we should go through. Whether it's up or down, we should go through. At least, that's the way that I see it. So getting up here, if we go back and look at this chart here, this pattern completes around the 430s, right? So how are we going to get to the 430s if this is let's say we're going to hit this up here at like 425 or 426? Well, similarly to how we did here, right? We had that push. It just turned into a big giant wick, right? It was what, 8 or 9 points or maybe 10 points of a wick that we have here. Well, you take 425 or 426 or whatever that number is, and you add 10 to it. Well, what do you get? You get 436, right? It's pretty close to where this pattern completes. So that's kind of pie in the sky what I'm thinking the market is going to do. Now, we have, for several tickers, going to say this at the risk of sounding mad. In looking, there's just not a lot that, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. There are things that tell us we can go down, right? We have all of this down here saying we could pull down here. You know, and we have others that are worse. But, you know, for some reason, I'm having a hard time, and it might just be my bias, right? It might just be my bias in seeing a lot that's going to try to really take us down. Now, you know, I might eat those words, and that's okay. You know, it won't be the first time I've been wrong. And I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong because, again, I don't know which way it's going to go. Nobody does. So, you know, that's kind of my take on the market. And what I'll do tonight, because I haven't had a lot of time to go back and do this, but, you know, so before I finish that statement, right, as I'd mentioned before, we could still pull to complete this pattern down below 370 as well. So, you know, whether it's a wick down or whatever it might be. So anyway, you know, that's kind of where I stand on these things. So let's jump over to the actual market itself, you know, and kind of how the market set up today. Like we had some decent range, right? We had range. Let's look here. So roughly, we'll call it like 5 points of range, right? Not too bad. And so there were a lot of patterns that could have been traded. Now, the first one, there's this shark pattern here that could have been traded, right? And now the problem with this shark pattern is that, and it's why I tend to try to trade the C to D legs. I like to trade the C to D leg because, you know, a lot of times I get in a bit early, get stopped out and have to re-enter. And that's okay with me because I'm a bit of an aggressive trader. But if you notice this shark pattern, it hit a completion point here. Its first completion point. That right there is roughly 88.6. I'm going to assume that the one right above it is going to be 78.6. If we were to measure that, I'm going to assume that's the 78.6, which is tried to, you know, fake somebody out here to say, nah, we're going to reverse it. What we would consider that to be a cipher pattern, 78.6. Yep. And then here's 88.6. So if you look, we had this kind of fake reversal, and then we turned around and we plummeted back down to this 113 retrace, which that is a sharp completion, a solid sharp completion. So at that completion point, that's and you know, if we're playing the odds, that is a reversal, right? And it's what happened. We turned around and we reversed. So I played this C to D leg, and then I ended up playing this move here. And then, you know, I got out. I don't remember where I got out actually, but anyway. So, yeah. So those are two of the plays. You know, these are basically just, you know, M and W patterns. They're just funky, right? So if you're doing the normal things that I've mentioned in the past, trend lines, for instance, you know, we have this here. So, right, we run a trend line through here. Now, where do you enter that? Well, you enter it, boom, right here, right? You set your stops, and then, you know, if it turns against you, you cut the trade. Otherwise, you take it down, right? And then you make your measurements, and then you take your profit. Don't get greedy. Don't get crazy. This game is a game of base hits. So that's the first. So this reversal here, you know, a lot of times, like I'd mentioned before, you get a 50% retrace. And I'm going to assume in this area is going to be roughly that 50%, which is why we have that little, you know, hitch in our giddy up there. Yeah. All right. So 50%, right? We nailed that, pulled back, and then we just kept going. So on that bigger pattern, I was talking about that reversal on that bigger pattern. Like, this is what I would like to see it happen. I would like to see us get up, you know, on this pattern back here. This shark reversal pattern, I would like to see the same thing. I want to see us get back up to those areas, right? We're going to have a little bit of a hitch in our giddy up at the 50% area, which is going to be right in this 394 range, like we'd mentioned, right? But, you know, do a little bit of accumulation and then go. That's what I'd like to see for that, if that helps at all. So yeah, let's keep going here. So that was a, you know, a pretty solid trade if you understand those patterns. Let's see what else we have here. All right, then we have this big M pattern here that's set up. It's very, it's not pretty. A lot of these patterns today were not necessarily pretty. But you do have this pattern here, right? And it came all the way down, but it took a lot. I'm assuming this is when the FOMC came out. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's absolutely what it is because I scalped that. Got this W pattern that continued to take us down. Let's look at that retrace. What is that? Just a lovely little 61. So that's tough to trade because it's pretty quick moving. And look at it. There's a lot of, in these times, right, there's a lot of chop that'll kind of try to fake you out. And, you know, what you'll see is on days that are, so we had a lot of range today, but in these areas, we had a lot of chop. And then we'd have these pulls, and then we'd have like these pops, right? So you got to be a bit careful. You just have to be patient and, you know, be confident in what you see. Because if you look here, you know, if you were to take this long, for instance, well, let's see, why would we have taken this long? Let's see. Other than, you know, we had this pull with this reversal here. So let's see here. I mean, the reason for me to take it long is that's a, you know, that's a reversal there. It really is. So I'm going to assume that we could look at this as an M pattern. So let's do that 1618, I want to assume here. Yeah, okay. That's our 1618. And I'm pretty sure I took that trade too. I've got my journal closed. Either way. So we would take that trade because it's a 1.618. And when we get this bar here, like that's what we want to see. We get these wicks down here at a retrace like this. Like that's a great level to take a reversal. So we took this. And if we were to zoom out here, look at this. There is all trend in this, right? So you take that trade, and if you get in this trade at a good spot, you know, there's not a lot of reason to get out of it. We're not pulling back even to this trend line. Like our retraces are minimal. It's just moving, right? And then let's just say you get to a retrace of this and you get scared on this pop and you exit. Who cares? Like, look at this. I mean, let's just say you entered, maybe you entered off this next bounce on this trend line here, you know, this 381.02, and you push. I mean, you're not coming back into this trend line. It's just all gravy from there, right? And then, you know, take your profits along the way. And if you get scared, get out. You know, it's just a part of trading. So that in itself was another great setup, another great trade. Let's look here. So around the FOMC, I would always be very careful around the FOMC stuff. I mean, that's just not a, you know, it's a scary time to try to take a trade when the market is jumping all around. Now look at this all day move. Oh, I think that's the one we were just talking about. But if you look at it on a 5-minute chart, you know, it's a different look. Take this. Got this push, get this retrace down to 78.6. I mean, it's just beautiful. Then we have this kind of this trend line here, right? That every time we seem to bump into it, we seem to continue to pull, right? So it seemed to be our line in the sand. And these are the things I'll look for, right? I'll actually set up and I'll draw something just kind of like this. You know, like, okay, we couldn't get back to it. And then I'll draw something like this, you know, and I'll just continue to do that throughout the day just to get an idea of, you know, why are we stopping? Where are we stopping? So now there are other tools that I use as well, right? So I just want to make it clear, like the things that I'm showing here are just, you know, it's the tools that every trader has, right? If you have something like TradingView or something like that, like you all have these tools. Right, we popped through. If you look, this is the kind of stuff that I really look for shorts. So we have this trend here, and this pull, and we had this, you know, this turn. We tried to push, and we got these wicks. So there was a lot of selling, and so what I am assuming happened here is that a lot of people decided at this point they were going to chase this short. Because there's a lot of people that are short biased. Now, I could be wrong, but the way that I looked at this, especially with this trend line here, is that there's a lot of people that tried to short here. Every time right? We were trying to short. And what we were doing here was we were taking those stop losses, right? We were attacking the stop losses from the shorts. Well, what happens eventually? Boom, you get those pops, those algo pops, right? You get this push, hit this trend line again. What did we do? Get these wicks, right? And so people were, again, trying to short it, which it worked. It just took it a minute, because what you start to see is you get these attacking stop losses, shaking people out of the trade because it's getting back through this trend line and it's scaring people. So then what happens is, okay, well, the market's ready now. Again, came down, pop again. Just what's happening, right? So you have to be careful of these things. On a day like today, they're not necessarily easy trades, but they, this is just what the market does on days like today. When you're in a range-bound day, this is the kind of stuff you deal with. So, and then you get a turnaround and you get a push. I don't know if that helps, but, I tend to ramble on about this stuff as I see it, as I go back and look at it. I might acknowledge it while I'm trading, but there's so many things I'm doing during the day while I trade. So I think I'm going to call it there. There's definitely other trades that could have been taken. I'm assuming if we zoom in, we could see them. We could see scalps and all of that nature, or, and those things. But anyway, I'm going to stop it here because this video is 20 minutes already, or getting close to it. So, yeah, like, subscribe, and all those things, as I'd mentioned earlier. And I hope everybody has started off prosperous and having a great new year. I'm going to try to be a lot better at making videos this year. I have a lot of cool ideas of things I want to try to put together. So, yeah, I look forward to growing this thing and kind of meeting people and talking with more people. So, yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. And, I'll see you again soon.